4. Basic color correction. Apply the variations command. The variations command lets you adjust the color balance, contrast, and saturation of an image by showing you thumbnails of alternatives. This command is most useful for average key images that don't require precise color adjustments. It does not work on indexed color images or 16-bit per channel images. 1. Choose Image, Adjustments, Variations. The two thumbnails at the top of the dialog box show the original selection, Original, and the selection with its currently selected adjustments, Current Pick. When you first open the dialog box, these two images are the same. As you make adjustments, the Current Pick image changes to reflect your choices. 2. Select the Show Clipping option if you want to display a preview of areas in the image that are clipped, converted to pure white or pure black by the adjustment. Clipping can result in undesirable color shifts, as distinct colors in the original image are mapped to the same color. Clipping does not occur when you adjust midtones. 3. Select what to adjust in the image. Shadows, midtones, or highlights adjust the dark, middle, or light areas. Saturation changes the degree of hue in the image. If you exceed the maximum saturation for a color, it may be clipped. 4. Drag the Fine Coarse slider to determine the amount of each adjustment. Moving the slider one tick mark doubles the adjustment amount. 5. Adjust the color and brightness. To add a color to the image, click the appropriate color thumbnail. To subtract a color, click the thumbnail for its opposite color. To adjust brightness, click a thumbnail on the right side of the dialog box. The thumbnails are cumulative. For example, clicking the More Red thumbnail twice applies the adjustment twice. Each time you click a thumbnail, the other thumbnails change. The 3 Current Pick thumbnails always reflect the current choices. You can also save the settings you make in the Variations dialog box for reuse on other images. Adjust hue and saturation. 1. Do one of the following. Click the Hue Saturation icon or a Hue Saturation preset in the Adjustments panel. Choose Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation. Click OK in the New Layer dialog box. The two color bars in the dialog box represent the colors in their order on the color wheel. The upper color bar shows the color before the adjustment. The lower bar shows how the adjustment affects all of the hues at full saturation. 2. In the Adjustments panel, choose which colors to adjust using the Edit pop-up menu. Choose Master to adjust all colors at once. Choose one of the other preset color ranges listed for the color you want to adjust. 3. For hue, enter a value or drag the slider until you are satisfied with the colors. The values displayed in the box reflect the number of degrees of rotation around the wheel from the original color of the pixel. A positive value indicates clockwise rotation. A negative value, counterclockwise rotation. Values can range from negative 180 to plus 180. 4. For saturation, enter a value or drag the slider to the right to increase the saturation or to the left to decrease it. The color shifts away from or toward the center of the color wheel. Values can range from negative 100 to plus 100. 5. For lightness, enter a value or drag the slider to the right to increase the lightness or to the left to decrease it. Values can range from negative 100 to plus 100. Specify the range of colors adjusted in the Hue Saturation adjustment. 1. Do one of the following. Click the Hue Saturation icon in the Adjustments panel. Choose Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation. Click OK in the New Layer dialog box. 2. In the Adjustments panel, choose a color from the menu just above the sliders. 4 color wheel values in degrees appear in the Adjustments panel. They correspond to the adjustment sliders that appear between the color bars. The 2 inner vertical sliders define the color range. The 2 outer triangle sliders show where the adjustments on the color range fall off. Fall off is a feathering or tapering of the adjustments instead of a sharply defined on-off application of the adjustments. 3. Use either the eyedropper tools or the adjustment sliders to modify the range of colors. Click or drag in the image with the eyedropper tool to select a color range. To expand the range, click or drag in the image with the Add to Sample Eyedropper tool. To reduce the range of color, click or drag in the image with the Subtract from Sample Eyedropper tool. While an eyedropper tool is selected, you can also press Shift to add to the range, or Alt in Windows, or Option in macOS to subtract from it. Drag one of the white triangle sliders to adjust the amount of color fall-off, feathering of adjustment, without affecting the range. Drag the area between the triangle and the vertical bar to adjust the range without affecting the amount of fall-off. Drag the center area to move the entire adjustment slider, which includes the triangles and vertical bars, to select a different color area. Drag one of the vertical white bars to adjust the range of the color component. Moving a vertical bar from the center of the adjustment slider and closer to a triangle increases the color range and decreases the fall-off. Moving a vertical bar closer to the center of the adjustment slider and away from a triangle decreases the color range and increases the fall-off. Control drag in Windows or Command drag in macOS the color bar so that a different color is in the center of the bar. If you modify the adjustment slider so that it falls off into a different color range, the name in the Edit menu changes to reflect this change. For example, if you choose yellow and alter its range so that it falls into the red part of the color bar, the name changes to red 2. You can convert up to 6 of the individual color ranges to varieties of the same color range, for example, red through red 6. Colorize a grayscale image or create a monotone effect. 1. If you are colorizing a grayscale image, choose Image, Mode, RGB Color to convert the image to RGB. Do one of the following to access the Hue Saturation adjustment. Click the Hue Saturation icon in the Adjustments panel. Choose Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation. Click OK in the New Layer dialog box. 3. Select the Colorize option. If the foreground color is black or white, the image is converted to a red hue, 0 degrees. If the foreground color is not black or white, the image is converted to the hue of the current foreground color. The lightness value of each pixel does not change. 4. Optional. Use the Hue slider to select a new color. Use the Saturation and Lightness sliders to adjust the saturation and lightness of the pixels. Video 5. Red eye removal and recolor. Remove red eye. The red eye tool removes red eye in flash photos of people or animals and white or green reflections in the flash photos of animals. Select the red eye tool. The red eye tool is in the same group as the spot healing brush tool. Click the triangle in the lower right portion of a tool to display additional tools. 2. Click in the red eye. If you are not satisfied with the result, undo the correction, set one or more of the following options in the options bar, and click the red eye again. Pupil size increases or decreases the area affected by the red eye tool. Darken amount sets the darkness of the correction. Replace color in image areas. The color replacement tool simplifies replacing specific colors in your image. you can paint over a targeted color with a corrective color. The color replacement tool doesn't work in images in bitmap, indexed, or multi-channel color modes. 1. Select the color replacement tool. 2. Choose a brush tip in the options bar. Generally, you should keep the blending mode set to color. 3. For the sampling option, choose one of the following. Continuous samples colors continuously as you drag. Once replaces the targeted color only in areas containing the color that you first click. Background swatch replaces only areas containing the current background color. 4. For the limits option, select one of the following. Discontiguous replaces the sampled color wherever it occurs under the pointer. Contiguous replaces colors that are contiguous with the color immediately under the pointer. Find edges replaces connected areas containing the sampled color while better preserving the sharpness of shape edges. 5. For tolerance, enter a percentage value ranging from 0 to 255 or drag the slider. Choose a low percentage to replace colors very similar to the pixel you click, or raise the percentage to replace a broader range of colors. 6. To define a smooth edge in the corrected areas, select Anti-Aliased. 7. Choose a foreground color to replace the unwanted color. 8. Click the color you want to replace in the image. 9. Drag in the image to replace the targeted color. Video 6. Clone, Heal, and Patch. Retouch with the Clone Stamp tool. The Clone Stamp tool paints one part of an image over another part of the same image or over another part of any open document that has the same color mode. You can also paint part of one layer over another layer. The Clone Stamp tool is useful for duplicating objects or removing a defect in an image. To use the Clone Stamp tool, you set a sampling point on the area you want to copy or clone the pixels from and paint over another area. To paint with the most current sampling point, whenever you stop and resume painting, select the Aligned option. Deselect the Aligned option to paint starting from the initial sampling point, no matter how many times you stop and resume painting. You can use any brush tip with the Clone Stamp tool, which gives you precise control over the size of the clone area. You can also use opacity and flow settings to control how paint will be applied to the cloned area. 1. Select the Clone Stamp tool. 2. Choose a brush tip and set brush options for the blending mode, opacity, and flow in the options bar. 3. To specify how you want to align the sampled pixels and how to sample data from the layers in your document, set any of the following in the options bar. Aligned samples pixels continuously without losing the current sampling point, even if you release the mouse button. Deselect Aligned to continue using the sampled pixels from the initial sampling point each time you stop and resume painting. Sample samples data from the layers you specify. To sample from the active layer and visible layers below it, choose Current and Below. To sample only from the active layer, choose Current Layer. To sample from all visible layers, choose All Layers. To sample from all visible layers except adjustment layers, choose All Layers and click the Ignore Adjustment Layers icon to the right of the sample pop-up menu. 4. Set the sampling point by positioning the pointer in any open image and Alt-clicking in Windows or Option-clicking in Mac OS. 5. Optional. In the Clone Source panel, click a Clone Source button and set an additional sampling point. You can set up to 5 different sampling sources. The Clone Source panel saves the sampled sources until you close the document. 6. Optional. To select the sampled source you want, click a Clone Source button in the Clone Source panel. 7. Optional. Do any of the following in the Clone Source panel. To scale or rotate the source that you're cloning, enter a value for W, width, H, height, or the rotation in degrees. To show an overlay of the source that you're cloning, select Show Overlay and specify the overlay options. 8. Drag over the area of the image you want to correct. Retouch with the Healing Brush tool. The Healing Brush tool lets you correct imperfections, causing them to disappear into the surrounding image. Like the cloning tools, you use the Healing Brush tool to paint with sampled pixels from an image or pattern. However, the Healing Brush tool also matches the texture, lighting, transparency, and shading of the sampled pixels to the pixels being healed. As a result, the repaired pixels blend seamlessly into the rest of the image. Select the Healing Brush tool. 1. Click the brush sample in the options bar and set brush options in the pop-up panel. Mode specifies the blending mode. Choose Replace to preserve noise, film grain, and texture at the edges of the brush stroke when using a soft edged brush. Source specifies the source to use for repairing pixels. Sampled to use pixels from the current image, or Pattern to use pixels from a pattern. If you choose a pattern, select a pattern from the Pattern pop-up menu. Aligned samples pixels continuously without losing the current sampling point, even if you release the mouse button. Deselect Align to continue to use the sampled pixels from the initial sampling point each time you stop and resume painting. Sample samples data from the layers you specify. To sample from the active layer and visible layers below it, choose Current and Below. To sample only from the active layer, choose Current Layer. To sample from all visible layers, choose All Layers. To sample from all visible layers except adjustment layers, choose All Layers and click the Ignore Adjustment Layers icon to the right of the sample pop-up menu. 2. Set the sampling point by positioning the pointer over an area of the image and Alt-clicking in Windows or Option-clicking in macOS. 3. Optional. In the Clone Source panel, click a Clone Source button and set an additional sampling point. You can set up to 5 different sampling sources. The Clone Source panel remembers the sampled sources until you close the document you're editing. 4. In the Clone Source panel, click a Clone Source button to select the sampled source you want. 5. Optional. Do any of the following in the Clone Source panel. To scale or rotate the source that you're cloning, enter a value for W, width, H, height, or the rotation in degrees. To show an overlay of the source that you're cloning, select Show Overlay and specify the overlay options. 6. Drag in the image. The sampled pixels are melded with the existing pixels each time you release the mouse button. Look in the status bar to view the status of the melding process. Patch tool. Repair an area using sampled pixels. 1. Select the patch tool. 2. Do one of the following. Drag in the image to select the area you want to repair and select Source in the options bar. Drag in the image to select the area from which you want to sample and select Destination in the options bar. 3. To adjust the selection, do one of the following. Shift-drag in the image to add to the existing selection. Alt-drag in Windows or Option-drag in macOS in the image to subtract from the existing selection. Alt-shift-drag in Windows or Option-shift-drag in macOS in the image to select an area intersected by the existing selection. 4. Position the pointer inside the selection and do one of the following. If Source is selected in the options bar, Drag the selection border to the area from which you want to sample. When you release the mouse button, the originally selected area is patched with the sampled pixels. If destination is selected in the options bar, drag the selection border to the area you want to patch. When you release the mouse button, the newly selected area is patched with the sampled pixels. Repair an area using a pattern. 1. Select the Patch tool. 2. Drag in the image to select the area you want to repair. Note: you can also make a selection prior to selecting the Patch tool. 3. To adjust the selection, do one of the following. Shift-drag in the image to add to the existing selection. Alt-drag in Windows or Option-drag in macOS in the image to subtract from the existing selection. Alt-shift-drag in Windows or Option-shift-drag in macOS in the image to select an area intersected by the existing selection. 4. Select a pattern from the Pattern panel in the Options bar and click Use Pattern.